Hello everyone, I'm Joshino, and today I'm going to be talking about what makes a game's competitive scene successful. And for this, I'm going to use Planetside 2 as a case study, and I'm going to be looking at what successes and what failures there were in both the development team and the community in trying to get a competitive scene off the ground. Originally, the Planetside 2 team did express a will to try and get a competitive scene going with Planetside 2, and it is a big part of games nowadays to try and tap into this competitive scene that Dota 2 and CSGO have captured, as this draws in much more players, and especially with a free-to-play game, the idea of trying to tap into that competitive scene and get more people viewing your game and more people wanting to play it is a big draw. Originally, in the early days of Planetside 2, they had a few events that were semi-competitive, where they had some of the outfits from the game come into the studio, and also some commentators from games media like Total Biscuit and Level Cap, and they had battles that were sort of like the prototype of what we have now from the community in the present day from Planetside battles, where 2 or more massive teams duke it out for a continent pretty much in an hour or 2 hour session. However, in 2013, SOE, who are now Daybreak, announced a partnership with MLG to try and promote the competitive scene in Planetside 2. However, at the start, all MLG did was stream in-game live content of Planetside 2, and actually, whilst I thought it was quite a good thing to add meta to people's gameplay, because if you're on TV, it makes you want to win the fight more, and you know that your fights matter because other people are watching them, and you do get this competitive feeling. However, nothing ever really got off the ground, and to this day, there's nothing really come from the MLG partnership, and all they show now are these war reports, which are good, but they're basically just news reports from a YouTuber who takes either clips from players in the game and reports on what happened in their fight, or does a report on some fictional or factional, I'm not sure whether if they're actually like a role-played battle from the in-game situations, or if they're just completely made up, but some situations from servers where there have been fights. So I would say that nothing really has come of the partnership. Later on came an announcement about these Nexus Battle Islands, which were basically smaller maps where they'd have either squads or a platoon playing, which one squad's 12 players and 48 players is a platoon, and basically each squad 12. But these small maps were meant to be a catalyst for a competitive scene, which I do understand that they would have been match made between outfits, so there would be a competitive scoreboard of the outfits that were the most successful in these smaller battles. However, this feature was never pushed out, and actually I don't think it was particularly a bad thing that they weren't pushed out, because I didn't think it fit in with the theme exactly. Planetside 2 is a great game, but it is a great game for its big battles, its immersion, and the fact that you can't get that feeling anywhere else, that you're actually in a war and that you are actually part of a war effort. However, what Planetside 2 isn't is a completely tight FPS shooter, and whilst I do think it is good, I don't think it is at all the best out there. For example, in Counter-Strike Global Offensive or the other Counter-Strikes, the gunplay and the firing mechanics are very fine-tuned, and in that there's such a skill gap between the lower players playing in Silver and Nova 1, which are the lower ranks, and the Global Elite at the top, and the professional players. And also games like Call of Duty, where you can have so many customizations on your infantry gear, it makes for a lot of variation in the competitive scene. However, Planetside 2 is interesting in how it has an infantry set of different loadouts, and there are customizations within those loadouts, and obviously it would be interesting to see smaller squads, how they would choose which roles they would take against an enemy. The fact is that the game isn't completely balanced, and in a good way for a larger scale warfare where there are 3 different factions and you want them to be unique, but there are very different mechanics on each faction, and there is no complete fairness in engagements. For example, the NC have a scat max, which is just amazing at holding small areas and small bases. And also generally, I'd like to mention that maxes are overpowered in general and are overused in infantry, and it'd likely be that you'd see exactly the same tactics used against each other, and there isn't much meta in how people approach things because of the aforementioned lack of attachments and options for grenades and things. Anyway, those are the reasons why I think the Nexus Battle Islands wouldn't have been the best idea for competitive play, but did fit in with the idea of competitive gaming, because you need to scale it down to be able to follow players and outfits and to see them clash against each other to see who is better, I guess. However, talking about the game as a whole, because now, in the present, we have Planetside Battles who are setting up server versus server battles, and also sometimes faction versus faction on a server. Basically, they are a one-continent battle between two teams. However, those teams are made up of hundreds of players, and sometimes thousands, as was broken in the Guinness World Record. And unlike the Nexus Battle Lines, which would have smaller players, it is so hard to exactly follow your favourite players when in the actual game, and you never really get the idea of this characterization of players in the fight. And even if you did know the players that were fighting, you would never be able to say that player actually made a difference to the game, because each player's contribution to this world fight is very minute, and really, although we don't like to admit it, a lot of the time the game boils down to how many people are put in one place. So Planetside 2 actually coins a phrase that size matters, because it is a massive game, but size matters in competitive games because you need to be able to follow it. And I will make a disclaimer that it can be very enjoyable to watch Planetside 2, but to an outsider, it's very difficult to watch the game and completely grasp what is going on, because it's on such a macro scale, because all battles are almost like waves crashing upon each other rather than individuals using skill to try and outfox each other, and teamwork on a very tight level that can have these intricate metas like Dota 2 and CSGO, for example. And it does make it very hard for the commentators to say, oh, we have X going into here now and he's taking on another player, where they are almost blank faces within outfits. However, Das and Fall and streamers and YouTubers can give a bit of character to the players playing the game, but not everybody is engaged with that. So this is my disclaimer. I think that what Planetside 2 battles are doing now, which is the server smashers, is great, and the Guinness World Book of Records was amazing. However, as we saw on the Guinness Book of World Records event, there really weren't that many people watching the streams, and not what we expected. And again, Planetside 2 battles do an amazing job, and a lot of them have put their real life money into the project. And what that does give us is an interesting meta between our servers, because it gives a meaning to our fighting, and between factions and outfits. But it's quite hard for the outsider to see in and to enjoy the competitive scene. So in conclusion, I think the developers failed to get the competitive scene going in Planetside 2, but initially I think they were going all the wrong ways about it, and I think perhaps instead of a competitive scene they should have been thinking of ways to add a community meta, and something that would have instead nurtured the community and sort of rivalries inside the game that people outside could enjoy, but it would be more likely to draw people into the game. However, I personally didn't think that the Battle Nexus Islands were the right answer to the conundrum. I think that what the community does in regards to Planetside 2 battles is great, and is especially good for the Planetside 2 community, and really adds something of value to our gameplay. Anyway, what does everyone else think? Does anyone have any different opinions on the matter? Does anyone think the Nexus Battle Islands could have worked? Anyway, until next time everyone, I've been Joshino. Thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want to hear and see more of me. See you later.